Hello there. It's 3 o'clock on a Tuesday, and we all know what that means. Another riveting episode of Behind Breaking Bond.
I guess I should put the paper down. Andy Conn,
He's such a document lover.
Director. Yes, he's like my secure Linus in the security blanket.
Right, the documents.
Walking around with court records all day long.
We love our
Andy
documents.
Conn, Director of Victim Services, Victim Advocacy, Crime Stoppers of Houston.
And how you doing?
I'm doing okay. I was in Atlanta this weekend. We had a winner for the Foundation for Improvement of Justice, Dr. Niecy Hamilton, who my colleague Sydney, who also sits in for me, we nominated. She was one of the 5 national winners, and it was for her work as a human trafficking survivor. So it was a really good event, and I love nominating people who are deserving and actually get to be chosen as the winner. So I basically said, you know what? People watch Oscars, people watch Emmys, people watch Grammys, and they fawn all over entertainers and so forth. But the real people who do day in and day out work, they are the ones who should be recognized. So that was good.
That's very true. We're getting close to the election. That's coming quick. Joining us this afternoon, introduce yourself, young man.
Okay, sure will. Thank you all for having me. My name is Brad Hart, and I'm running for the 230th Criminal District Court.
You were the judge before in that court.
Yes, I was. I've been part of criminal justice, specifically in Harris County, for about 25 years now. I went to law school here in Houston, was a prosecutor in the DA's office starting in the late 90s. Was a prosecutor there up until January of 2013. When I was appointed by Governor Perry to fulfill an unexpired term in the 230th District Court. 2014 won a full term, and then in 2018, with the sweep that happened, that swept out every Republican judge.
So you were a sitting judge for basically 5 years.
6 years.
6 years. Yeah. And again, I mean, we were 2018. We were doing straight ticket. You could just go in and pick Republican, Democrat. So.
Yeah, that's right. That was the last year of the straight ticket voting that we had, and that played a big difference in it. The straight ticket voting that year, when you just look at those numbers of people that did straight ticket, it was significantly on the Democrat side.
Yeah.
And it frankly made a big hole for us to come out of for people who didn't vote straight ticket to then go and individually vote for each.
Right. Yeah. I mean, most people went in there and they just picked D or R. They didn't even go down to the end of the ballot where a lot of the judge races are.
Right, and frankly, it's a long ballot. I think Harris County has the longest ballot, and part of the reason why is because we do have so many judges here, and frankly, it's just the easy thing to do to just hit R or D and be done with it, as opposed to go through page after page after page.
Yeah. Why did you decide to run again?
Well, I had no intention of running again, quite frankly. When I left the bench, I was fortunate enough to be asked by Brian Middleton, who's the elected DA in Fort Bend County, to come down and be the head of the felony trial division down there.
He's a great guy.
He was just prosecutor of the year by the Texas County District Attorney.
That's right. Fabulous. To me, it's the way criminal justice should be. Obviously, he was a Democrat. Here I am, a Republican judge.
Yeah.
He brings me and another group of folks in to be the leadership there, and it's not about politics at all. It's about criminal justice as it should be. Helping people who need help, whether that be people who are suffering from addictions, trying to end the school to prison pipeline, but also taking into consideration community safety and keeping the community safe. And that's the goal that he set for that office, and it's a goal that we've maintained down there. But to be perfectly candid with you, within that first month of me being off the bench and Judge Morton taking over, I started hearing about decisions that were being made specifically regarding bail that at least made me go, I'm not there. I'm not hearing the individual cases. So, you have to take each case individually. But even defense attorneys who were in the courtroom seeing it, coming to me, a couple of days later and saying, I don't know where that came from.
Yeah.
And so over time, of course, y'all started doing your Breaking Bond series, and a lot of stories that y'all have seen.
And a few on Chris, specifically Judge Chris Morton.
Right. I think he's been one of y'all's stars over this time. That started in, I think, the fall of 2019 or somewhere around in there.
We did in the fall of 2019, we had a press conference
Yeah.
with the Harris County District Attorney's Office and the Houston Police Department, October 19. And we kind of let the public know what we started to see. And that's an important date to remember because that was well before the term COVID came into existence. When COVID became a convenient and easy excuse, but this was happening before COVID.
Right. That's right.
Well, and that brings up a good point because that's one of the things that I hear, and one of the reasons I'm running is because of the lack of trials that have been had in the criminal justice system as a whole, but in this court in particular. When I was the judge of that court, only one court went to trial more than I did. And frankly, that kind of irritated me a little bit. I wanted to be number one in something down there. Let me go to trial most. But even when Harvey happened, they've said, I've heard them say, well, we had to deal with Harvey and then we had to deal with COVID. Well, I had to deal with Harvey.
Right.
Harvey happened while I was still on the bench. And me and my Republican colleagues, we fought on a daily basis, not necessarily with each other, but to make sure we could get back to trial as soon as possible because we knew that the reality of trial really moves the system. It really moves people out of the Harris County Jail, whether that means they're going out on the street or they're going to a facility somewhere else.
Right.
It means people who are not guilty, and I've seen plenty of people who are not guilty be found not guilty.
Yeah.
And they deserve that. And victims who are waiting for their day in court also, they deserve that. So it's important to get to those things as quickly as possible.
It's like the end, but also the most important part of it, right?
It is. So I was the first district court judge in Harris County to conduct a trial post-Harvey. I think it was within 6 weeks of it happening. So from that, say September of 2017 until I left the bench in December of 2018, I think I conducted 19 trials, and during that time, after leaving the bench, you have January of 2019 to March of 2020 before COVID happened.
Yeah.
The number of trials that are happening under those same conditions, and frankly better conditions because they were further along in the process. And then to see once COVID happens, say for this court in particular, I think during the entire time of COVID, there were 2 trials held in that court. When other colleagues tried 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 cases during that same time. And I don't understand that. I don't understand how some judges can be holding that many trials and you only do 1, 2, 3, whatever.
It doesn't really seem to make sense, does it?
No, it doesn't.
You had an interesting, yesterday you were with the Chronicle editorial board.
Yes.
Judge Morton was there, kind of after saying what you had to say, listening to what he had to say. Where do you sort of, I hate to say disagree, but how are you all different, would you say? Or why should people vote for you? Let me put it that way.
As you might imagine, we differed on quite a few things.
He had a lot of nice things to say about me, didn't he? And Andy too.
And Andy and
see, we take those as compliments.
The district attorney's office and bail bondsman and
police unions,
and
we're all in
Senator Whitmire too.
It's a huge conspiracy, Brad.
I'm not sure he intended to do this, Andy, but he used your fear-mongering, axe grinding quote. He didn't talk about the coffee.
Just the fear-mongering.
We'll have to work on that.
Right.
We'll work on that between now.
I was happy to say that he did not believe that I was fear-mongering. So.
That's good. That's good.
He did say that.
So after hearing what he had to say, telling the editorial board what you had to say, what do you want folks to know?
Well, as an example, we talked about a specific case that is over with, a case that he made rulings on that again, and I conceded the point, I'm not there in the courtroom.
Right.
But I can look at the documentation and question why the decision was made, especially considering why in this particular case, because of the decision he was made, the federal government decided this person is so dangerous that we need to charge him with these offenses because you've released him back out on the streets. And he had a reason for why that he did that. And the Chronicle Board asked me, does that change your mind? I was like, no, it doesn't change my mind. And I did a little bit more digging into it. And where he found that the person was not a danger, the federal court, when they had their detention hearings, found that he was a danger to the community and there was no sufficient conditions of bond that you could place on him that would assure that the community would be safe or that he would show up for his trial. And now this person is serving a long federal prison sentence. So we differed in that case specifically. Again, I wasn't there to hear the case, but just looking at it on the surface, I just don't see how I would handle that case the same way. I can't conceive of it. I'm not saying that I wouldn't. I'm just saying I can't conceive of it. I would have to hear that. The way that we are active in court, that's something to me is very big and different between us. I know Judge Morton has said that if he is too active in court, then he becomes an activist judge. And some people might argue that he already is an activist judge because of the bail reform that he campaigned on last time. That's a part of this election cycle now, obviously.
And again, just to remind everyone, there's a federal mandate for misdemeanor bond reform. That does not exist with felony bond.
And that's why we use the form discretionary.
Yes.
Correct with that.
Right, but that's exactly correct. But Judge Morton and the other judges that are up for election right now, during the 2018 election, they campaigned on bringing misdemeanor bail reform to the felony courts. They campaigned on that. And I believe they've kind of backed off of that now because, stories like y'all have done.
It's not working, is it?
No, it's not.
It's dangerous.
You should absolutely honor the Constitution, follow the laws of the state of Texas, give the defendant each and every right that they are absolutely entitled to, but also not forget about the other parts of the law that say you shall consider the nature of the offense, the history that the defendant has, and you shall, to me that's a very important term, shall consider the safety of the community, the safety of the victim, and the safety of law enforcement. And when they talk about their bail decisions, they very rarely talk about that last part of it, which should be at least as equally important.
During your tenure on the bench, I'm not going to assume, but I'll ask you, you had defendants that were charged with capital murder, I'm assuming. And we've talked and we've done this, and because we never used to see the amount of offenders getting a bond for capital murder.
Because you can't say no bond for capital murder.
We've seen that.
You can't.
Yeah.
It's possible, yes. You have to go through the process and have a hearing on it, but you can hold somebody at no bond for capital murder. If you don't go through the process of the hearing, or you do have a hearing and the state doesn't prove what they're supposed to prove, then you have to set a bond for the capital murder. But what people have to understand, if the state is not seeking the death penalty, all right, then that basically means they're entitled to a bond.
Sure.
But if the state's not seeking the death penalty, the only sentence, if found guilty of that capital murder, is life without the possibility of parole. You have to take that into consideration also when setting a person's bond. Are they going to be a danger to the community? You cannot set a bond that's oppressive, but you have to ensure that they're going to come back to court. I mean, quite frankly, if I'm charged with capital murder and I'm facing the rest of my life, in TDC,
are you going to go back?
Am I going to go back?
Yeah.
You got to take that into consideration.
Of course.
Yeah, and that's what we're kind of seeing now. The bonds for capital murder have been, in a lot of cases, extremely low. They've been reduced, and we've done stories where capital murder bonds have been reduced to 50,000.
Yeah.
250. We're going to do something.
They used to do one for 9,000 a couple.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not-
Well, that's right. Yeah. $9,000, $900.
Not saying I could consider
Right.
anything now. I'm just.
But
saying.
that's just, I mean, what do you think about that? A $9,000 bond for capital murder?
Here's the thing I think I can safely say about that is I've never seen such a thing before in 25 years of practicing criminal justice in any form here. So,
I'm looking, and again, I'm pulling this data from the Harris County Justice Administration Department, which is a new agency under the county judge, and you can clearly see the bonds that have doubled. Basically we've gone from 150, 132 and 238 to 359 for homicide. And again, this is just, all we're doing is taking the data because we think the public should know what's happening with the data. And one thing that was really disturbing to me, and this is a domestic violence awareness.
Yes.
We had a big press conference yesterday in Houston. One of the things that I really looked, if you look right here, and this is bonds approved by offense, and we looked at violation of protective order. And if you're at the felony level, that's pretty serious level. We went in 2018, there were 48 bonds approved for that offense, 420 in 2021. That's disturbing.
Yeah.
Here's what I think I can safely say about that. Having run for judge in 2014, fortunate enough to be elected then, and then run for judge again in 2018, not so fortunate then, but going through those campaigns, people, you would get a lot of, judges, what do they do? We don't really know y'all. We don't know what you do. We don't understand the whole process, which I get. I mean, God forbid, hopefully no one ever has to show up in front of us. It's not a good thing because you've either been accused of doing something wrong or something bad has happened to you. People just weren't aware, right? And so those stats that you're giving out there, which, like you said, you're pulling from their website, people were not aware of that before, but they're becoming aware of it now. And so this election cycle, from the moment that I decided that I would run again up until now, people are getting it. More and more people than have ever come up to me before and said, look, I finally get it. I finally understand why having judges who are going to follow the law, and that includes considering the safety of the community, why it's so important. We finally see it. These stats that y'all put out and then that others put out make people understand it. And I've seen an energy out there that I have not seen, hopefully, obviously for me and for the rest of my colleagues, that it'll mean something.
Look how unusual. I think you would agree that the primary was really unusual because
Yes.
look at the incumbents that lost in the primary.
You never saw that before.
No.
You never saw incumbents really, maybe one here, there.
Yeah, it was
And
rare.
we had a lot of candidates for the Democrat primary sitting
Yes.
right where you are, and we're going to continue to have those that are running again, that actually defeated the incumbent judge in the primary. We're going to have them back as well, talking about why they think, they should be elected. But I thought it was pretty telling. I've been around, I've never seen, usually if you're a incumbent judge, you generally get a free ticket.
Yeah, you
to
don't
the general
right.
election.
Yeah.
You're not going to be opposed within your own. It's kind of an unwritten rule.
Yeah.
I never had one.
No. So that was really unusual in some of them. Some of the candidates that you and I talked to, we thought were extremely well-versed, intelligent, and, we look forward to having them back, during the month as well.
Yes, every judicial candidate, every sitting criminal district court judge, you are more than welcome to be sitting right here, just like Brad is. One of the things.
Take a look at this because we'll throw a little tease out. Go ahead.
This is, how there's always unusual things that happen.
It's like Forrest Gump.
It
We just
is,
sit here
right?
and these things just find us.
Now we're looking at a situation where a young man that was charged with capital, he's originally charged with capital murder. He has a pretty high bond. The capital murder is dropped down to an aggravated robbery.
He pleads.
Yeah, he pleads guilty
Yeah.
to aggravated robbery. And he's facing a maximum sentence of 30 years.
Correct.
A judge gives him a $20,000 bond and he walks out of jail. Is that unusual?
I will just say again, I've never seen anything like that.
I mean, it's.
Like what y'all described to me earlier, I've never seen it.
Yeah, and it gets even worse. So you're gonna really want
It'll get
to,
even worse when you watch tonight on 9
Yes.
o'clock.
yeah, be sure to tune in to,
You'll see what happened after he got released on a $20,000 bond, technically for capital murder. Or if you want to really, get into it, you can say he pled to aggravated robbery with a deadly weapon. And I've vetted this through several other judicial people that are actually on the bench as well, and they've never seen anything like this. And my heart goes out to, the families that are involved with this. But he was actually, like I said, from 2016, October of 2016 to July of 2020, he was in custody. And the only reason he got out of custody is right here, because they lowered this to something I've not seen, and that's $20,000.
so you figure for $2,000, a man who knows that he's gonna go to prison he could go to prison for as long as 30 years, is given a $20,000 bond, $2,000, he's out, and things go tragically wrong. Be sure to check that out tonight. Tonight's Breaking Bond. Brad Hart, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. And thank you all for watching. This is on the Fox 26 YouTube channel. Share it with your family and friends.